I grew up in little towns all over southeastern Oklahoma, northern California, and western Washington. I was born and spent the first several years of my life in southeastern Oklahoma. In around middle school time frame, I was in western Washington, and I started high school in northern California, and then came back and finished high school again in southeastern Oklahoma. The reason why we moved so much is my dad was in construction, residential, light commercial construction, and we moved to where the work was. I was like every other little kid. Anything with wheels on it, I digged it. Motorcycles, bicycles, skateboards. I was into it just like every other kid. As a matter of fact, when I was little, I always had a bicycle, and that was my main transportation. My parents didn't take me places. I had to ride my bike to get there. I got my first motorcycle when I was in first or second grade. It was one of those little Honda 50s, and I loved riding motorcycles all the way till today. Skateboarding. I started skateboarding out on the West Coast and tried bringing that back to Oklahoma whenever I came back, but it just wasn't very popular here. So I left that alone. We raised animals most all of my growing up. We had chickens and rabbits, goats, pigs, horses, dogs, you name it. At one time or another, we probably had it. And I can remember as young as probably 4th grade, me having to get up in the mornings before school and go out and do chores, feed and water all the animals, and then hurry up and get back to the house, take a shower, eat some breakfast, and hop on the bus and make it to school on time. That was every morning. So when you're raising animals, it's not 5 days a week, it's 7 days a week. You're getting up early and you're taking care of those animals. And I think that my parents did a good thing by having us chores to do and responsibilities to take care of. And I think that also added to our character. I've got a little brother. His name is Tony, and he, as he got older, he also started pitching in and helping with the chores and whatnot. I've got a stepbrother, Brian, and 3 stepsisters, Katie, Cassie, and Nikki, and I love all of them very much. They all have kids. They've all got jobs. None of them live in the same town, but we all still kind of stay close and stay in contact with each other, and I'm glad to have them. Yes, I played a lot of sports growing up. Baseball, football, basketball, wrestling, and track. I played most of those all through school. So I was a busy young man, a busy little boy playing sports growing up. I played college baseball and I played semi-pro football. My semi-pro football career only lasted a year in Wichita, Kansas, but I sure did enjoy playing it. Along with baseball. Baseball was my favorite pastime. From 5 to 21, I played baseball. That was my go-to. I was a pitcher and a middle infielder. In college, I played second base and was a starting pitcher. So I was also really busy in college playing baseball. But I love sports, and sports, I think, is something that a lot of parents overlook with their kids, at the character that sports instill in a kid, leadership, being able to work together as a team to accomplish something, just the personal skills that you gain in sports, the humility that you get, because you're not always a winner. You have to learn how to lose, and lose with heart and dignity, as much as you have to learn to win with heart and dignity. Those things are good life lessons for kids, and I wish that there was room for all kids to get to play sports. I got my associate's degree. Well, let me say this first. Out of high school, I went to college and played baseball. I didn't go to college to go to college. I went to college to play baseball. That was my only reason for being there. The teachers knew it. And I didn't do so well in grades after junior college. Once I got out of junior college, I went to a really tough private school. And I was invited to that school because of baseball, and I was just waiting to go pro. I didn't care about college at that time. But then after I went back to school, back to college at the age of 29, after I had lived out in the world a little bit and realized that I had had some experiences that showed me that having a college degree might benefit me greatly. And so I decided to drop everything. I sacrificed making a living to being absolutely dirt poor to go back to college, but I did it full time. I stuck with it, and I got my associate's degree at the age of 30 at Northern Oklahoma College up in Enid, Oklahoma, with an associate's degree in social sciences. And then I attended the University of Oklahoma in Norman, and I got my bachelor's degree from there in environmental geography. So yes, I was in the military. I was in the U.S. Air Force. I went into the Air Force at the age of 22, and I got out at the age of 26 honorably. I served 4 good years. I originally went in to be a pararescueman, but during the initial training, I had some issues with my knees and had to choose a different career field, a different path. And so I chose to be a survival school instructor. Well, that particular career field had a 6-week elimination course, so they didn't want just anybody that wanted to be a survival school instructor. You had to pass a very rigorous and tough elimination course where they got rid of the people that didn't want it so bad. It was very physically and mentally grueling and challenging. We never were allowed to walk anywhere. We had to run everywhere we went. So when you saw us on base and you saw people running, they were the survival school students, the instructor students. Kind of goofy, but we would get in trouble if we were ever caught walking anywhere. Unless it was an off day and we were in like civilian clothes going to the BX or something. At the end of the 6-week elimination course, me and a guy that I had befriended in that training had both decided that we wanted to travel, and being a survival school instructor was not going to allow us to do that. So the day before graduation, we opted out of graduation, and our instructors were not very happy about that, but the Air Force went ahead and let us choose another career field. Both of us got to choose whatever we wanted. They just sat down a big stack of books in front of us that had tons of career fields and brief descriptions of what they did, and they said, come on now, choose your final career. I got to do that because I scored really high on the ASVAB, in the upper 90s, I think, and I was very physically fit, regardless of my knees. They just wouldn't hold up for the rigors of being a pararescueman. So I chose to be a boom operator, which is an in-flight refueling specialist, and I got to travel a lot with that job, that's for sure. I've been to Japan, Korea, South America, Central America, of course all over the United States, and including Alaska and Hawaii, Iceland, let's see, England, Spain, France, Italy, Germany, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and pretty much all those places I've been to several times. So I got very cultured while I was in the military, and I sure do appreciate it. Well, that's a good question. I don't want to go into too much detail with any of these questions, but I'll give you the lowdown. I started in residential and light commercial construction, which is what my dad did when I was growing up. Going to work with him, and then my brother and I started doing it right out of high school. After that, I got off into the oil field because I wanted to do something different than what my family did. So I started doing downhole completion work behind a wireline truck, where we went down and perforated the wells that were already drilled so that they could go in and extract the resources out. After that, I sold drill bits for a little while. The drill bits they used to drill the holes for oil and gas. And then I started my own business as a petroleum landman. And I did title investigations and title reports for oil and gas companies on who were the lawful surface, mineral, and leasehold owners. After that, because of all the ups and downs in the oil field, when the oil field's going really good, everybody's making good money, but when it goes down, they lay people off. You don't get paid. You have to just wait until it picks back up again. And you either have to find a part-time job or whatnot, ready to go back at a moment's notice whenever you're called. So it's feast or famine in the oil field, and I wanted something a little more even-keeled, so I got off into manufacturing. And I started as a supervisor in a plant that made plastic extruded conduit, and worked there for a little while, and then got offered a position as a manufacturing engineer for another company that made airline seats, commercial airline seats. We built airline seats for companies all over the world, not just United, Delta, and the American companies, but also China Eastern, United Arab Emirates, Lithuania, Lufthansa. I mean, you name it, almost every country in the world, it seemed like we were building the seats for their commercial aircraft. So those are the three main industries that I've worked in my life. Well, I started as a little kid. I had a BB gun from as early as I can remember, and I tried hunting rabbits and everything else with that, but I wasn't ever very successful when I was little because I wasn't let out very far from the house. But for my 8th birthday, I got a .410 shotgun, and that's what I was going to use to hunt squirrels and rabbits with. And I learned a very good life lesson from my father, who of course had told me before when I had my BB gun, you don't point guns at people, but here's where it really sank in hard on me. We were at a skeet shoot right after my birthday, with my dad and some of his brothers and friends, and it was a wolf chase. So a wolf chase is where everybody stands in line, and the guy that's up first gets to shoot at the clay pigeon first, the skeet first, and if he misses, he has to go to the back of the line. But if he hits it, he gets to stay at the head of the line. The goal is to stay at the head of the line. But when it finally was my turn to shoot, the skeet went out and I shot. I don't remember hitting it. It was a single shot, break open, .410. So I shot the skeet, and I had turned to look at my dad, and when I turned, I also turned my gun barrel pointed it right at everybody. And my dad reached down and grabbed my 410 away from me and busted my butt and headed me off to the truck, and made it very, very clear to me that that was a no-no. And he took my gun away from me. I had to sit in the truck the rest of the day, and I didn't get to shoot that 410 for a really long time. And after that, my dad paid really close attention to making sure that I understood and used the proper safety skills with a gun. Another story, when I was little, my first big salmon that I caught in western Washington, when I landed it, my parents have got a picture of me holding the salmon up by the gills, just barely able to hold it up, and its tail was dragging the ground and me having its head up by my head. So that salmon was as long as I was tall. Also, at the age of 10, my dad enrolled me into a hunter safety course, which was a 2-day course. And the first day was classroom work, where we received instruction and got to watch videos. For some of the older people my age and around my age, you'll remember the old search and rescue videos where the hunters got lost and didn't do anything right, but search and rescue eventually found them. And so they go through a lot of what happens when you get lost in the woods and how to deal with that. And then they teach you about navigation, using a compass, reading maps, and then of course gun safety, how to handle a gun properly and all that. The second day was out in the field, where we had to qualify with a .22 rifle, a shotgun, and we had to pass a short navigation course. I don't know what hunter safety courses are like today, but I heard you can take them online. I would highly recommend finding a course like I took, much more in-depth and realistic. You learn a lot more from it. Another experience I had when I was little hunting, the first deer I killed was with a compound bow. I used my mom's compound bow, and I was 11 years old, and I shot the deer that morning and had to clean it and get it cut up and hurry up and make it to football practice that afternoon. I'll never forget that day. I have a lot of them. I have a lot of memorable hunting experiences. So I'll just pick one. When I was maybe 5th grade, I think, my dad had bought a black lab, and she was smart. Well, she was super smart, but we got her as a little puppy, and I bet she wasn't 4 months old, and we took her duck hunting, and we were in a canoe, me and my dad, and I had shot a duck, and the duck went down, and we sent Corky, was her name. We sent Corky after it, and boy, she swam straight at it like she knew exactly what she was doing. We didn't train her that much. She knew how to fetch and retrieve and bring stuff back to you, but it was like she knew when that duck went down, that's what she had to go after, and she did. She bails out of the canoe, takes off swimming after the duck. Well, I had really just mortally wounded it, and it wasn't dead yet, but Corky swims up to it and it goes under, and she's swimming around in circles, and it would pop up and she'd swim back to it and it would go back under, and eventually it came up right next to her and she grabbed a hold of it. Well, when she grabbed a hold of it, the duck tried swimming down under the water again and took her with it, sunk her under the water. That's how little she was. So me and my dad hurries up and rows the canoe out there to get her, and the duck had taken her under a couple of times by the time we had got there to her, but she never let it go, and we grabbed a hold of her and pulled her and the duck in the boat with the duck still in her mouth. She was probably the smartest dog that I've ever had in our family ever. She just really got it. She paid attention, and she was really smart. Well, you know, 35 years or 40 years of fishing, you have a lot of them. But one that I really remember that stands out, we were in the Puget Sound sturgeon fishing. And I remember me and my dad and one or two of my uncles, or one of our uncles and one of my dad's friends, and just fishing over the side of the boat. All of a sudden, I got a bite, and it started pulling line off my reel, real slow, just pulling it out. And so I was trying to fight it, and my dad's reaching over, and he's trying to work the drag, and he gets the drag set to where, you know, it's pulling pretty hard on my pole, but it's still stripping line out, just real slow. And I'm fighting and pulling, and every time I pull, it's pulling out more line, and I could never gain any ground on it. My dad let me fight it for a long time, but it was like I was hung onto a dang submarine or something. There was no give in it, never come back or nothing. It just kept going, just kept taking line. And before I ran out of line, my dad had gotten his pocket knife out and reached over and just cut my line. We was not gonna land that fish. I got a lot of those too. One was not too far from here when I was a little kid. This is Jack Creek, and it runs into Little River, not too far from here, about a mile from here. And not too far from where it runs into Little River, just down the river a little ways, is a place called Horseshoe Bridge. And it used to be a low water bridge where the river had run over it. But that bridge, they blew it up because the fish couldn't get up and down the river very easy, and now you can't cross the river there anymore. But back when I was a little kid, you could. And we were camping as a family one night, me and my little brother and my mom and my dad. And we had a dog named Rusty. And it was late at night, about 11, 12 o'clock at night. And Rusty was down at the river just barking and would not quit. So my dad gets a flashlight and walks down to the river. We weren't very far from it. And he walks out down by the bridge, and he comes back, and he wakes me and my little brother up, and he says, "Come on, get dressed. You guys got to come down here and see this." So we get dressed, and Dad takes us down there, and he grabs a 5-gallon bucket, and we don't know what he's getting the bucket for until we get down to the bridge. And my dad shines his flashlight across the bridge, and you could see nothing but little red beady eyes, thousands of them. And it was crawdads migrating down the river. The most amazing experience I've ever seen in the wild. I've never seen that many crawdads in the wild in one place in my life. But they were moving so thick you couldn't walk across the bridge. They were that close to each other. Thousands of them. So my dad's just scooping them up with a 5-gallon bucket. And we filled that bucket and watched those things migrate across there. It was like never ending. They just kept moving across the bridge. I'll never forget that camping experience. Well, first and foremost, my favorite hobby is working in my metal fabrication shop. I had a business at one time where I created or fabricated custom roll cages, Nerf bars, winch bumpers, tow hitches, stuff like that for golf carts and side-by-sides. Installing lift kits, doing all kinds of stuff to those things, and I really enjoyed doing that. But since then, now that I'm doing this, I just piddle a lot, and whenever I come up with new ideas of things that I want to build, I go build it and test it out. And you guys will see and have seen in some of my videos, like the rocket stove that I built, and then I built a pool cart. You guys are going to get to see that here shortly. When the weather warms up a little bit at night, we're going to go hiking and do a lot of hiking camping. So I really enjoy working in my metal fabrication shop. My other favorite hobby is golf. I tried getting really good at it one time. When I was at the University of Oklahoma, I got a job as a marshal at the Jimmy Austin golf course there where the OU college golfers played. And so if you worked at the golf course, you got to play unlimited golf and you got unlimited range balls. So I took that opportunity. I was there at OU for 3 years, and for 3 years I probably hit at least 5,000 golf balls a week, and probably played 4 rounds a week, and then just practice around the greens, chipping greens, putting greens, all that. And I tried getting really good. One treat was that a professional golfer who's a professional now, his name is Anthony Kim, attended OU and was a golfer there. And I got to know Anthony pretty well, play golf with him and practice with him a lot. He taught me a lot while I was there. One really memorable experience I have with Anthony is I was marshalling one day, and Anthony and another golfer that was on the golf team came by and said, "Hey, why don't you come play a couple holes with us?" So I did. I always had my golf clubs on my golf cart when I was marshalling. So we came up on this par 3. It was a really long par 3, about 220 yards or so. So it was every bit of it, the best 4-iron you could hit to get it to the green. And Anthony gets up first, and he's always got the honors. He was the best player at that time at the golf course. And he hits his shot, and he's just short, right in front of the pin is set towards the front of the green, and he's just short of the green. The next guy gets up and he hits his, and he's just short of the green off to the right. Both great misses. If you're going to miss, those are the best places to miss, because no matter what, the pin is always uphill from there. If you miss on the back side of the green, you're going downhill to the pin, and that's a tough shot. But I get up there and I hit one of the prettiest 4-irons I've ever hit in my life. Drew it right into the daggum pin, and it stops and backs up just a little bit and leaves me about a 12-foot putt to the hole. And Anthony's just shaking his head. He can't believe it. And we get up there to the green, and the other kid, not Anthony, is furthest away, and he chips up and he leaves himself about an 8 or 10-foot putt. Anthony chips his ball on, and he's just got a little 1-foot kick in, and he walks up there and knocks it in, makes par. So I'm up next, and I drain my putt and make birdie. And I'll never forget, Anthony got so mad. I've never seen him get that mad before, but he chunked his putter all the way across the green over to his golf cart, cussing, yelling. There is no way that a daggum marshal should be that good at golf. So I'll always have that in my hip pocket as a reminder if I ever see Anthony, to remind him about that. So those are my 2 favorite hobbies, golf and working in my fab shop. So when I'm not in the woods, my everyday carry is my keys, a lighter, my wallet, and a pocket knife. My keys for obvious reasons, my lighter also for obvious reasons, starting fires, burning the ends of ropes so they don't fray. There's 100 uses for a lighter. I don't smoke, but I use it a lot for all different kinds of things. And my pocket knife has been the #1 tool that I've had my whole life. When I was a little kid, my dad gave me a Barlow pocket knife. It had the brown handle with the brass end on it like this, and just a single blade. And he taught me how to sharpen it and how to use it and all that. And since I was a little kid, I've carried a pocket knife. except at school. You couldn't carry them at school. But this is a Case XX Rancher, high carbon steel. It's not a stainless steel. But the reason why I carry one of these Ranchers is because my grandpa carried one, my dad carried one, and I've been carrying this one for a really long time, and I hope it's in my pocket the day that I die. I've reshaped this main blade right here. If you know what a Rancher is, you'll know that the blade on the end has got a real blunt curve to it. It's not a real sharp curve like this is now. I had to take a file and file that blunt end down to get it nice and sharp right there, which makes it a lot easier for poking through hides when you're skinning game. And this pocket knife has skinned a lot of game. But when I am in the woods, I just recently built something. I used to just take my belt and throw my pistol on my belt and take off into the woods, and a knife, a big knife. But recently I bought some new gear and I put that together, and I was going to show it to you right here. It's a kind of a utility belt. It's got 6 items on it, and this is what I just recently started carrying in the woods with me. First is a monocular. So not a binocular, but a monocular. Just one single lens. This is made by Vortex. It's the Vortex Solo 8x25, and I really like this. It's a lot less cumbersome, a lot less weight than a pair of binoculars, and to me works just as good. Next is my Browning Buckmark 22 semi-automatic pistol. I've had this pistol for a really long time, and I haven't found a 22 pistol that's as accurate and reliable as this Browning Buckmark. I've shot a lot of rabbits, a lot of squirrels, and a lot of tin cans with this thing. Next is a compass. This is a Silva Ranger, and from the time that when I was in the military, I had to go through, although I went to be a survival school instructor, my next job as a boom operator required that I had to attend and graduate from survival school, SEER school, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. And I did the field survival and water survival training along with the POW training. But during the field survival training, there was a lot of instruction on navigation, contour navigation, using contour maps and compasses, and learning how to triangulate, find a position, and work your way to the next positions. So learning how to use a compass is an essential part of being an outdoorsman, and I highly recommend anyone to take a class on the in-depth portions of how to use a compass. Next is just a drop pouch. This is a recent purchase also, for gathering whatever you want while you're walking through the woods. I also keep a Ferris rod, an extra Ferris rod in here, just in case I need to stop and build a fire, but I can see this coming in pretty handy. And it folds up nice and tight, so it's not a big cumbersome bag when you're not using it. Next this is also a new purchase for me. I had been carrying around just an old SOG knife, but I didn't really like that SOG. So I went ahead and saved up my money and got an Essie. This is the Essie 6 Rowan knife. It is a very heavy but well balanced knife, very thick. I'm sure it will do It will do me well in the future. I don't even think that I have used this yet. It looks like there's a little wear right there on the blade, but I would say that that is probably from going in and out of the sheath. Like I said, all of this gear, except for my pistol, is all brand new. But I wanted something that I could carry in the woods with me without having to carry a big old pack all the time. Next is just a Leatherman. This is the Leatherman Wave. I like it because it has a lock blade, a serrated blade, a file. It's got a saw and a pretty dang sharp saw on it. There's the lock blade. Metal file and emery board file. I like the Leatherman Wave. I've had several Leathermans throughout my life, but I like this. Doesn't have all the tools, the screwdrivers and everything else. But rarely have I ever used the screwdrivers on a Leatherman. But all the tools that are on this Wave, I have used and I do like. So there's my new everyday carry out in the woods. I do not have a concealed carry permit, and I don't believe that I need to have one. I'm just one of those people that that's my right to protect myself, and I don't need a license from anybody to do that. We'll try and keep this as short and sweet as possible because it's kind of a long story. First of all, I'm in my mid-40s and I have become tired of being an employee, someone else's tool to get their job done. What I have found, what made me most unhappy was that my creativity and my passion was always limited to what was allowed by the company I was working for or by the boss I was working for. So I've always felt very restricted in whatever career path I chose. My creativity and passion was great in everything that I've done, but soon I found limitations and then stopped enjoying what I was doing. So I'm an outdoorsman. I love the outdoors. Have been in the outdoors since I was a little kid, and that's what makes me most happy. And I know that there are a lot of other people in this world that would love to go out and spend time in the outdoors, but they don't know how. They don't know how to put up a tent. They don't know how to build a shelter. They don't know what kind of sleeping bag to get for what kind of weather. They don't know how to build a fire. They don't know how to purify water. And I'm a pretty good teacher at things that I'm passionate about, and all of that stuff is things that I'm very passionate about and I love to do, and I want to teach other people how to do it so they can be out here and enjoy the outdoors as well. The more people that come to enjoy the outdoors, the more of it that will open up to us to be used. I strongly believe that the government is willing to restrict anything we're not willing to use. So the more of us that want the outdoors, the more of it we're going to fight for, and the more of it will become available. So that's why I started Night Ranger Outdoors. Nope, I don't. So when I was going through survival school instructor training, the elimination course, a lot of what we did was on long field hikes. When we were carrying our rucks and going on long field hikes, was impromptu teaching. So if you're going to be an instructor, you've got to be able to teach people. And so we were being taught how to do improv while walking through the woods. Our instructors would just stop and say, Jake, tell me about this tree. What do you know about it? What can it do for you? And so we would have to come up with everything, every use we could find for that tree, whether it be shelter, fire, protection, whatever, and explain how to use it and how to do it. And that was, I really enjoyed that type of learning. So that's what I want to portray to all of you, is a type of realism, an off-the-cuff realistic, the way things really happen. If you write a script, it sounds too rehearsed and not very realistic. So I want to keep it as real as possible, so I don't write scripts. It just comes to me. So I already know a lot about what I'm doing, and I just portray that in my videos. Night Ranger gear. So my passion for about the last 10 years is I have wanted to start a store that had nothing but the best gear that the market could provide. The reason why is throughout my years there have been times when I didn't make a lot of money, and my only option was to purchase some less than stellar gear on the cheaper side of gear. And it never really failed. Every time I bought something cheap, it failed on me right when I needed it. And there is nothing that can ruin a great outdoors trip, a fishing trip, a hunting trip, a camping trip, than having an essential piece of gear fail on you right when you need it. So, I have learned to save my money and go ahead and purchase the best gear that the market can provide. And I haven't looked back. I haven't regretted that decision, not one time. There is a lot of the gear that I have that I saved my money for and purchased, and I still have it, and it still works as good today as the day I bought it. But I take good care of my gear. I oil things that need to be oiled. I clean things that need to be cleaned. I sharpen things that need to be sharpened. But my outdoor store, Night Ranger gear, I want tried and true gear. Stuff that I have tested, and it works, and it's reliable. And I want people to know when they come to my website to purchase outdoor gear and equipment that what they're getting is the best the market can provide, so that they will know whenever they get out into the outdoors that they can rely on that piece of gear or equipment that they purchase from me. So that is where my passion is leading me. That's what's next. That's where we're going. And Night Ranger Outdoors is a stepping stone to getting that kicked off and started. So be looking for Night Ranger gear to hit the internet soon, and please come and support that. I much appreciate it. So there was the 15 questions and answers. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask, I'd be happy to answer them. You can drop me a line at jake.ryan@nightrangeroutdoors.com, or you can hit me up on my Facebook sites, my Facebook pages, Night Ranger Outdoors or Night Ranger Gear, or you can go and comment on any of my YouTube videos at Night Ranger Outdoors. I sure do appreciate your support. I appreciate your time that you spend with me, and I look forward to a lot of adventures with you. Stay tuned. Thanks a lot.